Ami Horowitz is a great filmmaker and made a documentary on Occupy Wall Street. He's made a documentary on the UN. He's just done one on Governor Scott Walker's recall, which is really important that we all are aware of because this happens on June 5th. $100 million has been spent. And if Scott Walker loses this recall, I don't think you're not going to see any reformers in the political process. Nobody's going to put their head up because they'll see that you cross the unions and they'll destroy you. Ami Horowitz is with us now. Hello, Ami.
What's up, buddy? How you doing, man?
Is there a reason why you did some of this in your underpants?
You know, I knew you'd throw this back in my face. First of all,
Well,
it was a Speedo, okay? It wasn't my underwear.
That's not better.
and I know it's not. Nobody really wants
Listen,
to see anybody in a
I
Speedo.
don't know if you saw me in my Speedo. Yes, it makes no difference. It's horrifying any way you look at it.
Okay, now you did this because you just wanted to, or is that the kind of going down the European road?
Okay, so I guess it was a long road to get there, but essentially I'm trying to show. I'm not trying to show off my my skinny little pathetic body. Listen, you know, it's all about the fact that these people in Wisconsin, they're looking down this primrose path of Europe, and it takes them into complete fiscal despair, and they just think that the European model can defy economic gravity. And it can't. So my little way of showing people what Europe is like is, you know, wearing those god-awful Speedos. And I did it in the, it was March in the snow in Madison, Wisconsin. Not a pleasant experience.
Yeah, I see the people that are walking down the streets and they're just they're totally bundled up, and you're in the Speedo, asking questions. And how many of them answered your questions?
Pretty much everybody except that one person who walked by. It really was incredible how these people just were not at all fazed by what they were seeing. I mean, it was, wow, I couldn't believe it.
All right, so who's the leading power behind the recall movement?
You know, I would say it's not one single person, but it's all the heads of the different unions and the different public unions that are really the ones who are the prime movers behind this thing. You know, I think they, and rightly so, let's be fair about this, they see Walker's moves as an existential threat to their existence. Certainly an existential threat to their power. Maybe not their existence, but certainly their power. And I think the Democratic Party are looking at this in the same way. Listen, the Democratic Party gets a major part of their support from big unions. They don't want to see the union's power curtailed. They want to see it increased.
And the way he's curtailing their power is by saying that you can opt out.
That's right. That's the major way they're doing it. It's essentially telling a worker, if you're working for the state government and you don't feel like they're representing you, if you don't want to pay their dues, you can simply opt out of the union.
That is far too capitalist of Scott Walker.
God forbid we should give people the freedom of choice.
Yeah.
Why would we want to do that? I thought the Democratic Party was the party of choice. It looks like they're not.
What is the thing that you found most amazing?
I really do think the most amazing thing is, and it really speaks to what I think this fundamental schism we see in the American electorate. And it's not, you know what, it's not really the American electorate, but it's American politics. And it really speaks to the core of what we are as a country. It's shocking to me that despite the fact that we're seeing this failed political model of the European welfare state, that people still want to copy that, want to emulate that. You know, and they think that these massive entitlements they're giving away in Europe, that we could model that here, because you know why? It feels good. And therefore, if it feels good, you know, it can't have a cost, right? So they feel like they can defy economic gravity, and it's shocking to me that there are people who think that the European model is better than our U.S. American model of a solid work ethic, you know, the independent nature of an American ethos. And it's crazy that people, despite what we're seeing daily go on in Europe, they want to go down that same path.
Yeah, Walker is in Wisconsin, just down the street, Illinois. The opposite way to govern a state. and the A-B comparison is shocking.
It's stark.
Tell me about it.
It's amazing. You know, Wisconsin and like you said, Wisconsin, Illinois share a border, and it is they were in a very similar boat in terms of where they were economically and fiscally, and because it's a solid Democratic state, they decided to fix their woes, essentially following a sort of a European model of essentially raising taxes. They can bring in more revenue that way and right the fiscal ship. And what has happened is they've gone down the economic rabbit hole even further. While Scott Walker came in and said, this is not the model we're going to follow. We're going to follow the Republican model of cutting taxes, of pulling back on entitlements, and we're going to right our economic ship that way. And what you've seen is essentially an economic miracle in Wisconsin, where you've had a $4 billion deficit turn to a surplus in less than a year. Absolutely incredible. Wow. He now has a state that has a far lower unemployment average than the U.S. in general. And you've seen Illinois continue their economic woes. In fact, they've gotten worse.
He wiped out a $4 billion deficit in a year?
In a year. Basically on the back of these relatively minor cuts. Because they weren't, I think people misunderstand. These were not massive changes to the union, to the union workers and the model in terms of what they were getting. They were relatively modest changes, and they were able to. But there were so many of them, they were able to change the fiscal nature of the state.
Millions have signed in Wisconsin. Millions have signed the petition to get him out.
Not millions, but about 1 million, which really is. It's kind of incredible when you think about it. They have almost as many people signed the petition as voted against Scott Walker in the last election, which is, it almost defies, belief, but they say they got it and they pushed it through.
Primaries today?
For both, yeah. And his primary is, there really is no competition there. The other interesting thing is the Democratic primary, where you had the labor leader who's losing significantly to a guy named Barrett, who ran against Walker the first time. Now, what's interesting about this primary, Glenn, is that if you poll, and they have polled Democrats about what issues are most important in this election, believe it or not, and I was pretty shocked when I saw this, is that the issues with the unions really don't register that high. Their biggest issue continues to be jobs, like it is around the rest of the country. And the Democrats in Wisconsin are not as interested in the whole fight going on between big labor and Scott Walker.
Can you tell me about Dick Lugar? Let me just switch topics a bit. What do you think is going to happen today? Dick's going to lose, right?
I don't know if I would say that. I think he's got to run for his money for the first time in a long time.
Right, but the Tea Party is really involved there.
They are. I mean, they're getting involved in a whole number of races across the country, which is somewhat similar to what they were doing the last cycle. But I think you have some stronger candidates than you did last time, and I think that Dick Lugar is an example of that by having this guy Murdoch, who's a pretty competent guy, give this guy a run for his money. Yeah, Dick could definitely lose this race. And
now let me take it back to Wisconsin for one last thing. The Tea Party actively engaged in the recall movement?
Very much so. The Tea Party and all of the different organizations that back the Tea Party, I think, are being very aggressive in Wisconsin. I think they see this as a prime example of what they need to get done in this country for us to right our fiscal ship.
And if it doesn't work, you say you won't see any. Walker actually says you won't see anybody for a generation that will have the guts to do it.
Listen, we could have named this. This documentary a number of things, and one of them certainly should be what happens in Wisconsin doesn't stay in Wisconsin, because I think in fact it couldn't be more true. I think that it's more than that. It's more than you're going to see people, governors and mayors around the country not want to, risk their neck to take the kind of risks Scott Walker did, even though they know it's right for the state. I think a lot of them are going to be gun shy. I mean, despite the fact that it's the right thing to do. I think what you're also going to see, it's going to be a double whammy, is it's going to embolden big union to take the fight to us, because they're going to see, like, we have the muscle, we have the power to take out a governor who has been very successful. And as long as it doesn't comport with what we're trying to get done, we're going to go out there and we're going to take people out.
And they'll do it state by state,
will.
city by city. They'll do it every single time.
They sure will. And this is why it's such a tough fight. This is why I decided to make this doc for you on a relatively backwater state, and why I had to go out in March and freeze my balls off.
No, I didn't pay you to put a Speedo on. That wasn't. I mean, that's your own.
Oh, in my contract, I thought there was a bonus for that. No?
The Speedo clause.
Right. Ami, thanks a lot. I appreciate it, man.
All right, man. Good talking to you.
It premieres tonight on the Real News. That's at 6 o'clock. 7 o'clock. What is it? 6 o'clock Eastern.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I get screwed up with the time zones here. 6 o'clock Eastern, following my show on GBTV tonight. It's Showdown in Wisconsin, and why it's important that you pay attention to this on the Real News.